So, Chris, in our last segment, we left off where you were in 1992 at FM 102. I guess that's when things unraveled.
Yeah, I left November of 92. November 30th was my last day there. What happened was Brian White, brilliant programmer. I worked for him at KFRC later, which was a great thrill for me. I was actually hired to be the morning guy at KFRC until Rick Torcaso came in and put an end to that. Another loser who, you know, belongs in the annals of destructive radio people that just wanted to have a job to ruin things. But Brian had done a great job. Okay, I mean, I'd been basically forced by Jerry McKenna to take either the programming job, OM job, or the morning job, but they wouldn't do both. And it was because we were transitioning. We brought in a new ownership group, Booth Broadcasting out of Detroit, who had been very successful. They didn't want to pay me $400,000 or $500,000 a year. Okay, as it is, I think my last salary base when I left KSFM, 1992, was 150 grand base. I probably made 300 grand my last year, which is a lot of money.
That was probably the highest in town.
Well, it was then, but I mean, in the 90s, then all the guys made money. Okay, they made 500-600 grand a year, but I was making 100 grand in 1985. So, there was a lot of money back then. Nobody was. Like, I helped Dave Williams and Joey get their first six-figure contracts there, which they rightfully earned.
Wow.
And they were two of my mentors. I mean, I love Dave Williams. I think he's probably the greatest news talk man I've ever heard. And I'm happy he's working again. And
he was #1 on KFBK for many years.
Great thing,
he's a great broadcaster.
About Dave Williams. He and I went to the same high school together.
Really?
Highlands High.
Highlands High, yeah.
And Bob Nathan, I got to work
yeah.
with as well. Bob was a brilliant broadcaster. He's so smart. Anyway, it's actually December 26th, 1990, and Brian calls me and says, I've been fired. Typical horse's ass general manager, didn't like Brian because Brian, like me, didn't like the general manager and told him to butt out. Well, with Marty leaving, okay, and with Booth coming in, they wanted to have someone else. So Brian unceremoniously is fired. Everybody's like, what's going on here? So the station was in flux for about 3 weeks, okay? Chuck Field was named a PD, or a temporary PD. He was 19 years old. He still had pimples on his face. Not his fault. So, we went through.
I forgot about
we started hearing disturbing rumors about a guy that had been fired for some real problems in Washington coming in. So, lo and behold, the worst happens, and one by one, everybody starts getting gassed. Kevin Kay goes, who was one of the great programming minds I've ever worked with, okay? Assisted Gillette and I for years. He's gone. Some dirtbag shows up that's been out of work, that's a buddy of the new PD. Then Mike is finally forced out. So, it started to go south, and they tell me, well, we don't like the money Mike's making, we're going to probably get rid of him, but we want you to stay. Well, I'd already had my contract done, and I told them, you get rid of Mike, you're putting the nail into my back. They got rid of Mike, and that's when I went to war with the program director, and I told them, I said, it's either going to be him or me. Right? Jerry Clifton was our consultant again, and he had come in and said, look, Chris, if you want to work anywhere, I can help you. But he said, this place here, it's sort of screwy. Your GM you don't get along with. I said, yeah, I don't really want to move, though. I've got everything going. I have a lot of play-by-play I was doing for Davis, which I'd done for 10 years.
Yeah.
I'd done soccer, basketball. Now I was doing hockey, and I like my life here. Long story short, then this loser, Mancow, who's working at the teen station in San Francisco, K-Soul, who's famous for getting a haircut on the Bay Bridge and pissing people off. That was his big funny bit contribution to radio.
It's supposed to be about Clinton or something.
Yes,
Take off on Clinton, but it wasn't funny.
No, it wasn't funny, and it didn't do anything but piss people off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He starts announcing on his show that I'm going to be fired. Now, why anybody would care at 107 in San Francisco, who even I am, even though I'm sort of a Bay Area guy, people are calling me, telling me. So I let him know that if he ever mentioned my name again, they'd find bits and pieces of him swimming in the bay. So it stopped, but I confronted them on it, and they said, no, it's all a lie. Then they have this loser from Cleveland, who's a longtime programmer there, start calling for me, saying, yeah, I want to work with you on your morning show. They come to me after a week's vacation of Thanksgiving. They bring me in after I get off the air, and they say, well, things aren't working out, so we're going to let you go. So the program director was in there, and I said, well, first of all, you're not going to do anything. So I said, you can either go out the 5th floor of the Landmark building head first into the parking lot, or you can get this room right now, because you will never have anything to do with me. So they threw him out. And the GM and I then talked about it, and I knew that they were in trouble because they kept offering me whatever I wanted. He said, "How much vacation do you want?" I said, "I don't know, 5 months." He goes, "Okay." They wrote it down. He goes, "Your contract calls for a year's salary." We did that. So now you have a year and a half salary. And then, was there anything we missed? I said, "Yeah, you missed another 2 weeks vacation." "Okay, here you go." So I said to my wife, I go, "Look, they're dead." So I took their buyout, put it in the bank. Then immediately within a week, Doc Fuller hired me to sign on KST as his 9 to noon talk show host. And I waited. And I collected more and more information because there were a lot of pissed off people that I left KSFM in the morning. They had complaints nonstop. The program director tried to replace me. He lasted 2 mornings. And I waited up until November 29th of 1993. And during a bankers meeting at FM 102, where all the financiers of the radio companies were, I had the undersheriff walk in with the summons that they were being sued.
Yeah.
That's how I announced it. And they settled that son of a bitch real quick.
Well, I remember reading about it in the Sacramento
It was all
Bee.
true.
So, what I read in the Bee, that was all true and uncontested.
Well, in my estimation, it was all true. It was a sealed agreement as to how it ended up. So I can't tell you what was settled upon, but I think both sides were happy. Now, I can't tell you this. I was happy. I thought that their lawyer, who used to represent me to the Supreme Court, he's a good guy, but I thought it was interesting. I thought he handled it well. They tried to contend a couple of things, and then I think one person spoke, and that was the end of their contention. But the better part of it was, within a month of that, both people that were in charge were gone.
Okay.
So if it wasn't settled right, then I don't know why they left. In the end, the general manager, I think he bounced between 15 different jobs after that. So, that should tell people exactly what happened. Okay.
The unfortunate thing is that within a year's period of time, the thing that Chris grew with Mike
they
Reynolds
destroyed it. That's the point.
was
They
destroyed, and then they were destroyed in the process as well.
Right.
But the station lasted, and that's what matters most to me, because in the end, it's tried to be a lot of different things, but there was blood, sweat, and tears in that format. People gave up their lives, gave up marriages. People worked their asses off here, and really at the formation of it in 1980, everyone wanted one thing: to be the best, to be number one. And through that time, through a couple of bad years of Billy Manders, who I had the satisfaction of knowing I got him fired, and then I laughed at him as he was thrown out of the building. Through all of that, through the Ed Stoltz of the world, through everything, the one goal was never relinquished, and that was to be the best. Okay, and then in 1992, they basically threw it all away. After they got rid of those guys, they came back. They brought in some burnouts that ran it and basically ran it to what it is today. And, it's good. It's still a pop station, and I'm proud of the fact that if it hadn't been for me or for guys like B or Gillette or Jeff Lucifer, that it never would have been. It would have been something else right now. And you should feel the same way, because Quad never had a future as a top 40 station because we beat it. And as I told you, we did. Not only did we beat it, we decapitated it. Okay?
And you defined the format.
Well, of course we did. But then what did you do? I mean, give Stoltz some credit. He gave you some latitude and longitude, and you made it what is now progressive rock. And you guys brought in a competitor in the zone and who had respected you. They didn't do what you did. They tried to do a variation, and both stations were successful. Quad sold for $26 million. That's not going to happen as a top 40 station.
Right.
Who was the guy that made it a progressive station? You did. Okay? It was the same thing. What did the Zoo do for FM 102? What did my programming turn in 1987? I gave up my programming job to prove a point that we could take out our competitors by flanking them. I gave them this thing. I let them advance. They advanced. We flanked them, and I decapitated them. FM 102 lasts today, 32 years, because of that flank. If we hadn't done that, we would have been in oblivion. The morning show would have been a 7-share morning show. The station would have been a 3, and it'd be playing country music right now, or Christian, or whatever else it'd be doing.
So the history of Sacramento radio can be researched at this table.
We think.
He knows all the FM 102 stories. I could tell you all the Quad stories. And what was amazing is, there were people that loved both stations.
Of course there are. That's the audience too.
Yeah.
They listen to them both. They never got caught up in it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's maybe with the morning shows they did, because the morning show sort of set the vibe. But you know what? It is what it is, man. In the end, we provided great radio. I mean, this was a great radio market. Are you kidding me?